Buenos dias, Spartans. Happy Thursday, October 14th, the year 2021. Another straightforward day today. Briefly, in about 10 minutes here, I'll cover the second round of ancient Chinese civilizations. The next set of three will carry us over into the Common Era. And then when we are done, you will hopefully continue watching the documentary on the Great Wall of China. Some of you undoubtedly were able to start that yesterday at the end of class. Some of you were not. Nevertheless, when we're done today, you'll be watching that video. I'm going to go ahead and explain this to you, Meow. The video is embedded in the Schoology assignment. So you'll open up the assignment. You'll watch the video. There are questions here, a video guide to follow as you're watching. When you're done watching and answering the questions, you need to submit that. And then if there is time remaining today, you would go on to the next assignment, which I believe is some reading, pages 89 through 93, questions 16 through 26. If you don't get to that today, then you'll obviously be doing that tomorrow. So with that, we can get back into action here. We have the lecture on the second round of ancient Chinese civilizations. Yesterday, we left off talking about the Zhou. We talked about how the Shang more or less set up this bureaucracy to govern the region. The country, the empire became very unstable when they continuously were being attacked by invaders from the north, from the Mongolian region. Again, the Zhou come to power because they grew irritated with the amount of tax that they were suffering here. Again, if we look at where the Zhou are, here are the Zhou. These are various Chinese states within, China proper. They get a little frustrated with how they're being attacked from the tribes coming from the Gobi Desert. And like I said yesterday, these states more or less unite and then overthrow the Shang. And what that leads to is the Zhou coming into power. The Zhou have a very long-lasting dynasty. The end's a bit rocky, right? But it's a bit rocky for every dynasty when it's coming to a close. The Zhou were widely known for expanding, for continuing to expand the Chinese territory. What we have to know about the Zhou, because this explains how they collapse, they decentralized the government of China, where the Shang had this bureaucracy, right? They got a centralized government, and all these people who are carrying out government decisions for the main person, for the king or for the emperor, they have to respond to him. The Zhou set it up differently. What they did is rewarded control of various territories based on military service. So if you were an excellent warrior, then you got land to control. And this works for a while. This works for a while for them because they're continuing to expand. And it's very easy to keep people in control, to keep them responding to the king or to the emperor, if you can give them more resources, more wealth. And it's very easy to get more resources and more wealth when you're expanding. The problem is, towards the end of the Zhou rule, they stopped expanding. And what happened is the different military leaders who were controlling these territories started fighting one another. They became accustomed to continuously getting more resources and more wealth. And when that stopped, they started fighting one another. It's this decentralization of the Chinese government under the Zhou dynasty that leads to their collapse. Okay. They more or less fall out of major control during the 400s. They last a little bit longer, right? The slide says they last up to about 256. But things started getting bad about 150 years prior to that. The end of the Zhou dynasty is marked by something called the Warring States. And what happens during the Warring States, which will go on for some time, is that all of these different Chinese states, right? You got the Yan, the Zhou, the Wei, the Qi, the Han, the Qin, the Chu, they will all start fighting for control. All right. What will eventually happen is by the 220s BCE, the Qin will come into power, come in control of this region and begin the Qin dynasty. It doesn't last very long, right? It lasts, 15, 16 years if we're doing the math here. they'll come under the rule of a guy named Chang. Okay, and I guess he's the first emperor of China. Got an ESPN update there. Chang makes some pretty big changes for the Chinese. One is he establishes an autocratic government, an autocracy, if you will, where the Shang had a bureaucracy, right? You got a bunch of people in the government making decisions. Chang realizes that this division of power is not efficient. It obviously led to infighting. So what he does is go the exact opposite of that. He sets up a government where he himself is in control, and he himself is making all of the decisions, and he himself is deciding who's doing what and who's going where. This will eventually lead to a problem, right? This is why there is a revolt amongst the people in China, because this guy comes into power and then becomes a dictator, more or less. One thing that he is able to do, though, because of this autocracy, is continue adding to the Great Wall of China. We've been talking about these northern invaders for a couple of days now. Again, China is largely isolated to the south, to the west, to the northwest, but to the north, they're largely open. And what Chang is going to do with the Qin dynasty or during his time is really start adding to these various walls that will eventually become the Great Wall of China, trying to stop the invaders coming from the north. But again, his autocracy is going to lead to a rebellion, and eventually the Qin are going to be replaced by a group called the Han. All right, and the Han is going to be led by a Qin general named Liu Bang. All right, and he's going to come to power in about 206 BCE. And the Han, right, a long-lasting Chinese dynasty, they're going to stay into power for the first 2 centuries into the Common Era, so 200 years after Jesus is around. The Han makes some significant changes to the Chinese, one of which is government reform. There's several times now we've talked about failed government in China, whether it be the Shah not being able to handle the floods, or the Shang not being able to handle the invaders, or the Zhou becoming destabilized because they've got so many people fighting for control. Then you get this dude named Chang who wants to take all the power for himself. The Han try to adapt that. They try to solve that problem. What they're going to start more or less is a civil service, right? A government people. They're going to start training programs for various government officials, because it would make sense. It would make sense that you have the best, brightest, most intelligent, best trained people running the government. And this is largely why the Han Empire lasts so long. The Han do 2 other things that are pretty important. One is leveling. Okay, beyond establishing a training program for their government, they also establish economic leveling. In the United States, we would call this price control. It's very problematic, especially for poor. We see this now with prices going up in the United States in the year 2021. It's very problematic for poorer people when the supply of goods changes. If the supply drops, then poorer people can't afford it. They don't have the money to pay for corn or wheat or pork, whatever it is, if the price is too high. At the same time, if there's too much supply of something, pork or wheat or corn, and the price drops, that's still bad for poorer people, because undoubtedly the lower income people are doing those jobs that produce that product, which means they're not being paid as much, or they're being let go. So thus they cannot afford the food. Under the Han Dynasty, what they start doing is buying up surplus goods, buying up surplus resources and saving it. So if the supply ever changes, they've got things in reserve where they can release that into the market to keep the prices stable so poor people can't afford it. And if they got too much, obviously they're going to buy things and store it so the price doesn't drop so much. So between the leveling of economic goods to supply poorer people, and actually training government officials, the Han makes some pretty significant changes to this region. Okay, the Han are also going to continue to expand this region. They're going to expand, not expand the region. They're going to expand Chinese territorial control, which is obviously important. If you're getting more territory and you're getting more people, that also means you're getting more labor. You're also getting more resources. Everyone benefits from that. And what really is going to lead to China's economic gain is further trade along the Silk Road. Okay, if you look at, let's find it in the book here. If you look at the map on page 86, you can see where the Silk Road more or less comes or starts right in the China proper, right in the heart of China, and expands all the way across the Middle East, all the way across the Tibetan plateau, excuse me, and into parts of Europe and Africa. Because they have so many people, because they have so much resources with all this new labor, excuse me, they're really able to have significant amount of resources to trade. And because what they can produce in China, like paper, isn't readily available in other parts of the world, it's a very lucrative and prosperous trade mechanism that they enter into, excuse me. There is a reason why Chinese people refer to themselves as the people of Han. The Han dynasty, even though it was only 400 years old or so, really made some improvements for the people. Economic leveling, territorial expansion, international trade along the Silk Road, and then finally training government officials so you don't have some idiot trying to make choices. Really led to a lasting effect on the country. That is what I have for us today. This will be the last of the ancient Chinese dynasties. Tomorrow we'll talk about Chinese philosophy. What you guys have for the rest of the day here, you have a documentary to watch. They'll talk about the different stages of the Great Wall of China when it started several thousand years ago, and then how it goes from its more or less original function and form to what it looks like today and how we think of the Great Wall of China. You have a set of questions to answer while you're watching that. When you're done, you'll turn that in. Again, if you do finish and you do have time, then go on to the Friday assignment. There is some reading there, and then there'll be another lecture to listen to wrap up the week. Hope everything's going well. Hope you're all having a nice week, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Go Spartans.